Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, stretching, grabbing your phone, and then noticing something's just a little off. The air feels drier. There's an eerie silence. You step outside, and wait, where did the ocean go? Poof, gone. No waves, no beaches, no deep, dark abyss filled with strange, tentacled horrors. Just miles and miles of cracked seabed, shipwrecks sitting awkwardly on the ground, and thousands of confused seagulls just standing there like, well, now what? Welcome to the worst beach day in history. Now, let's talk about what happens if all the world's oceans suddenly disappeared. Because spoiler alert, it's not great. First things first, where did all that water go? Before we dive, well, figuratively, because there's no water left to dive into, let's get something straight. Water doesn't just up and vanish. It has to go somewhere. Maybe aliens took it. Maybe it evaporated into space. Maybe your upstairs neighbor left the faucet on too long. But let's say, for some mysterious, unexplained reason, all 1.332 billion cubic kilometers of ocean water just disappeared in an instant. No time for gradual changes. No slow evaporation. Just an instant, planet-wide, oops. What's next? The first problem will be immediate global panic. Without the oceans, you now have 70% of Earth's surface replaced by barren, dusty land. People living on the coast wake up to find themselves in the middle of a desert where their favorite beach used to be. If you live in a port city, congratulations. You now live in a former port city, and all the boats in the harbor are now permanently parked. And let's not forget that a ton of major cities, New York, Tokyo, London, Sydney, are all built right on the water. But with the oceans gone, there's nothing keeping the temperature stable anymore. Which brings us to our next problem. The second problem will be, the weather goes absolutely berserk. Oceans are basically the planet's giant air conditioning system. They absorb heat from the sun, regulate temperature, and move warm and cold air around in neat, predictable patterns. No oceans, no AC. What happens next is like turning off the cooling system in a massive, overcrowded office in the middle of summer. The planet heats up fast, and weather patterns lose their minds. Storms? Gone. No more hurricanes because hurricanes need warm ocean water to form. But hold on, don't celebrate yet because that also means no rain. Yep, nearly all the Earth's rainfall comes from water evaporating off the oceans. Without that, the land dries out like a neglected houseplant. First, crops start failing. Then entire forests turn to kindling. Within weeks, massive wildfires tear across continents, turning everything to ash. And all that missing rain? Well, rivers and lakes rely on it to stay full. Without new water coming in, they start to shrink, then vanish. Before long, the entire planet is just one big, dry wasteland. Kind of like Mars. Speaking of which, the third problem will be the oxygen crisis. Hope you weren't planning on breathing comfortably because, fun fact, over 50% of the oxygen in our atmosphere comes from the ocean. Not trees, not your houseplants, the ocean. Specifically, tiny little creatures called phytoplankton that float around in the water, producing oxygen as they photosynthesize. No ocean, no phytoplankton. No phytoplankton? Well, let's just say you'd better start rationing those deep breaths. It wouldn't happen instantly, but within a few months, oxygen levels would start dropping. And once they dip too low, say goodbye to, well, everything. Humans, animals, anything that breathes, it all goes. The fourth problem will be the extinction event. Alright, so no water, no rain, no oxygen. But we're not done yet. Because, as you might have guessed, pretty much every living thing in the ocean is now super dead. Fish? Gone. Whales? Beached and suffocating. Coral reefs? Just lifeless skeletons sticking out of the dry seabed. And if you think that won't affect life on land, think again. Our entire global food system relies on the ocean, from the fish we eat to the delicate balance of marine ecosystems. Without it, millions of people lose their primary source of food overnight, and global food chains collapse like a badly stacked game of Jenga. But hey, at least we still have water, right? Well, the fifth problem will be the freshwater problem. Here's something fun to think about. Most of the fresh water we rely on comes from the ocean, too. Rainwater fills our rivers and lakes, And glaciers, one of the biggest sources of fresh water, are deeply tied to oceanic weather patterns. No oceans means no more freshwater replenishment. And no more fresh water means, well, no more us. And here's the kicker. Even if we did have a little bit of fresh water left, the land left behind by the oceans would be so dry and barren that it would suck up any moisture like a giant, unforgiving sponge. Drinking water becomes the new gold. Wars break out over the last remaining reservoirs. Society crumbles. And at this point, we're just waiting for the inevitable. So, can we survive? Let's be honest. If the oceans disappeared tomorrow, things would spiral out of control fast. And even if humanity somehow adapted, the world we'd be left with wouldn't be anything like the one we know. The planet would be hotter, drier, more oxygen-starved, and basically uninhabitable for most life. The few survivors, if there were any, would have to figure out a way to create their own water, oxygen, and food supply from scratch. So yeah, maybe let's hope this never happens. On the bright side, if the oceans ever do disappear, at least we'd finally get to see all those creepy deep-sea creatures that have been lurking down there for millions of years. Though, judging by what we have seen, maybe some things are better left at the bottom of the ocean. So here's to hoping our oceans stay right where they are. Because as fun as it is to imagine a world without water, let's be real, we'd last about as long as a goldfish in a kiddie pool. If you enjoyed this wild thought experiment, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into absurd science. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.